to a special edition of our EdTalks podcast, Leap into L&D, where we explore transitioning into the dynamic realm of learning and development from various backgrounds. Listen to the personal stories and insights from professionals who've successfully made the shift, offering advice and inspiration for your own journey, hopefully. I'm Inna Horvat, a learning strategist at Eli, and today I'm extremely excited to talk with Giuseppe Perrone, a learning experience designer at STM, as we navigate his journey from hacker, yes, you heard that right, to learning experience design. Hi, Giuseppe, it's lovely to see you.
Hi, Inna, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we've got a lot of things on our agenda, but I'd love to start from rapid fire questions as we always do. Are you ready for that?
Yes, let's go.
Awesome. So what book or a resource can you recommend on L&D or education topic?
I have plenty. If you ask me one, I'll go with the most recent that I found that is I think, extremely interesting, which I have here. It's called Actionable Gamification by the UK Chow. It basically explores what are the drives that makes people interested in something. And it can be applied to most things, but of course, what interests us is the application to education. And I think there is a lot that can be taken from this specific book for our journey as educators.
Absolutely. And using this opportunity, I know that you've got a wonderful episode on your own podcast. So we're going to definitely leave all the links below on the same topic, right? On the same book. So,
thank you.
Sure. Who do you recommend to follow and invite to this podcast from L&D experts?
Can I say two people?
Sure.
Okay, then it would be Crisanti Vasitari. She's a career coach. I've known her through the L&D Shakers, which is also where I got to know you. And the next person I'm going to suggest as well. So it's quite the melting pot. So Crisanti, she's a career coach. I love her approach. And we had a lot of talks, and I think she really changed the way I approach certain things related to career and how to approach other people. So I think it would be beneficial for everyone to get something out of her. And the second person is Alessia Messuti, so a fellow Italian of mine. She's a technology enhanced learning lead at the International Training Center of the ILO, which is a UN agency, which also helped me kickstart my career as a freelancer. And I also met her through the L&D Shakers. Yeah, she's just extremely passionate about the topic. And every call that I have with her, I learn something new. And when I follow her, she doesn't post as often, but when she does, it's really valuable things. So I'm really, Alessia Messuti and Crisanti Vasitari would be the two people that come to mind.
Wonderful. Yeah. Next one. Could you share a memorable failure or a setback in your L&D journey, and how did you overcome it?
There are plenty to pick from. So there is one in particular where I couldn't agree on the outline of the session with the trainer, and we were just about to deliver. And in the end, we didn't agree, and I went on the stage, and I completely made up in the sense that I created a session on the spot, which wasn't very nice. It wasn't very good, but I didn't felt like I had the support. And I felt, oh, I'm alone. I have to do something. Fight or flight response. I just made up the session on the spot. Somehow people say they liked it and it worked, but I don't think that the objective were reached. I didn't, let's say, I learned how to deal with co-trainer better later on, even though I couldn't save that instance right there. Some failures are just failures, and we use them to kickstart a learning process. And I think this one was a session that should have been better. It wasn't. But from this one, I thought, okay, next time I have to do better. What went wrong? What could have I changed? Because in the end, you're in control of yourself only. And how can I have accommodated more choices from the other trainer? How could have I been better about it? And if I can mention a second one, because you mentioned the journey, so maybe for most people listening, it could be an incredible amount of time loss chasing the wrong thing when starting my career. I'm a freelancer right now. I may switch to being part of a company soon. But when I started as a freelancer, I lost an insane amount of time looking in the wrong direction. And I just learned by trial and error and the support of a lot of people that I had coffee chats with, getting to know them. And from each one, you learn something and you piece it together, and that's it paves the road for what to come next.
Yeah, and this is how actually we met in person for the first time. And
Indeed.
yeah, your freelancing days is something that I would love to discuss a bit later on, because I have so many questions and your journey is truly inspiring and interesting.
Thank you.
But coming to the next question, what question must be asked on a job interview for L&D specialists?
I think, why are you interested in being an educator? It's one of those fields where I think I need the money to pay rent is rarely an indicator of how to say there is no passion if that's the answer. So I think if you're searching for someone that has a passion for it, you need to ask why are they doing that and see what's the answer. And I'm saying that not because I would have anything against someone that does it just as a job rather than as a passion. I'm just saying it because as a student rather than as a trainer, I know that a lot of teachers and professors had a great inspiration in me, and some of them pulled me away from some topics I loved, and some of them pushed me towards topics to discover. And the difference between one and the other was the passion that they had. So if I see the passion in their eyes when they deliver the thing, in how they make us experience it, then it makes a difference. So if you want to be an educator, especially for young people, I think passion has to be a big drive. So why are you here? And then depending on the answer, see if there is some passion in those eyes.
Absolutely. That's a perfect answer for me personally. And the reason for this is very simple. I've transitioned myself to L&D, but from teaching area. And I used to teach English as a second language, both adults and children. And in the final year of my teaching career, I felt such a drawback in the passion. And this is when I realized that, okay, I think we are done here. We need to search for something else. And as long as you have this fire in the eyes and you're able to even to make someone who isn't very interested in the topic still want them to discover something new, you should continue. But once you are out of it, I guess that's it.
Yeah.
So final rapid fire question. So if you had to give just one piece of advice to someone starting their career in L&D, what would that be?
If I have to be oddly specific, Inna, I would say join L&D Shaker because it's the community where I grow into. In general, I think a community is, I wouldn't say needed, but to me, it changed completely the way I approach the profession. It's where I learned how to get myself seen, how to start the career, how to interface with other professionals, and just made me interested in actually research what is needed to be a freelancer. So for me, it was the L&D Shakers, and for you, for others, it could be something else. But I think the community, having a community, someone you can always go into, ask for suggestion, ask for support, give back when you have learned enough to support the others. I think that is essential, or at least it's what really can kickstart you into doing what you love to do.
Absolutely. And for me, it was also actually L&D Shakers. And it came to a point of my life when I was, in the one company for quite a while, one country for quite a while. And when you are stuck in one position for a while without being able to explore how the others are doing exactly the same thing as you do, then again, this passion, what we've just talked about, it also starts to, disappear.
Yeah.
So everyone has their own source of inspiration, right? So yeah, we are encouraging you to search for your own. But since we are done with rapid fire questions, we are coming to the main part, the main agenda of our podcast. And when you mentioned to me for the first time that you used to be a hacker, this is something that immediately, I thought, okay, we have to talk about this. So transitioning from hacker to LXD, how did it work for you? What were the challenges? Actually, I just want to know everything about your path.
I started when I was 12 and I learned basically the wrong things. I started doing damage where I shouldn't have. I was basically a kid with a gun. until at 15, I had kind of a rough wake-up call about it. And I decided, how can I make up for the damage I've done? And my idea was I can teach people how to defend from me, basically. So to teach them this. But I had zero tools to do that. I didn't know how to teach. I didn't know how to present. I barely even spoke to people. So there was a huge gap between what I wanted to do and what I need to do it. I disappeared from both topics, education and hacking, for a very long while. And in the meanwhile, I've done all sorts of other things until I joined Esteem, which is a students' organization of European students of industrial engineering and management. And they have a trainer section. And they organize Train the Trainers event. And I joined an event with them. The first event was Train the Trainer, and there I actually got the tools to teach what I wanted to teach. So my first training section after getting the tools, it was about IT security. And deliver once, deliver twice, deliver 100 times. In the end, I decided I would rather interface myself with people rather than with computers. So although I keep myself updated with IT and hacking as a culture rather than as a group of techniques, I love to work with people. And that's where I decided, okay, then let's mix this. I like to teach. I can start teaching that and then spread into other topics. So I started with IT security, and then I went to Train the Trainer, which is one of my favorite areas to tackle. Yeah, so this is the very short version of it. I haven't worked as a hacker. I've just acted as one. And then I decided, yeah, I don't want to work with computers anymore. I want to work with people. And so I left my university where I was studying IT because it just made sense. And I joined a CIPD level 7 course, which took me 2 years to complete. And after that, I was like, okay, now it's time to find yourself a job, start being a freelancer and do what you love to do.
Yeah, that's really interesting what you mentioned, that I didn't used to talk to people. And I think that our profession is mostly about people, less about technology. How did you begin? Right now I'm working in the IT company, and I see that some people more than others struggle with communication side of every job, because in every job you need to be able to position yourself, to communicate, to reply and ask questions. And this is something that I never thought, but for some people could be challenging. For someone who transitioned from IT to people-focused science, how do you find this switch, and what advice can you give?
I believe everyone has a different obstacle when it comes to speaking in public. For me, I've been basically living a long period of years of, let's call it isolation, almost complete isolation. So I didn't talk with people. I couldn't practice social skills. So that was my issue, which may be completely different by someone that is instead used to work with a computer rather than with people. I think this is a different issue. For me, it was just I'm not used to people in general. And so I had to build a whole set of skills. And there was a lot of being shy as well, in an extreme manner, not being able to look people in the eyes, for example. So I think this is a different issue than average. But the way I overcome it, it was, I think, during this Train the Trainer event. We were 12 people plus 3 trainers. And I think what made the difference was that we were allowed to be silly together. So the things that would make you shy usually were not making you shy anymore because other people were doing it with you. And so once you do it once, you say, oh, I survived it. It wasn't that bad in the end. So you do it a second time and you're like, oh, I survived again. So it's good. And then you do it again once, twice, 100 times. And in the end, you just feel yourself at home anywhere. Now I can present in front of 400 people and it's like I'm home and I have no issue with it. So again, if you want to consider it this way, you can say it was community once more.
Actually, myself, I can relate to the feeling. And what worked for me was fake it till you make it. However, when I gave the same tip, like we were talking with a colleague of mine, and she was having struggles with presentations, and I mentioned to her that, well, what I can tell only from my own experience, and not an expert in public speaking. However, fake it till you make it worked for me wonders. So I really pushed my boundaries. What's your attitude to this?
I think fake until you make it also work. I don't know if I did it on purpose, let's say, but sometimes, like in the beginning, I was trying maybe to inflate my own courage. Like, of course I can do this. Like, it was more towards myself than towards outside. And if you want to consider it a fake it until you make it, point is, it kind of worked, so I'll take it.
Yeah.
And my approach have been, I would say, being I don't know if you want to consider an underdog, in the sense like I wasn't putting myself in the flashlight. I was more like following people that were in the flashlight and trying to understand what makes you worth of being under that light. So we also met through a coffee chat, and I've had hundreds of coffee chats. And sometimes it was with people that were really famous, and I asked, like, how do you do that? How do you become famous by doing that? What makes you so special? And sometimes it was not a difference in skill. Sometimes it was a difference in marketing, for example. So by doing all of those calls, you start to understand all of the phases of this job. So there isn't just being good at delivering. There is being good at marketing. If you're a freelancer, there is being good at creating leads, for example. So one of those can make the difference between night and day on how you're perceived by your peers. And I didn't saw that until I talked with hundreds of people about it. So yeah, I don't know if my approach would be connect with people, maybe. And that's the way I've always learned, I think. Also, when I was a kid, when I was in this break period from between hacking and education, where there was a lot of gaming, and it was also where I created a website of interviews. And I was interviewing people that I think they were really cool, and I wanted to interact with them and learn from them. But I was a kid, so I had to pretend I was an adult to get them on an interview, and most of the interviews were done through emails. So yeah, connecting to people, I think, have always been my method.
Yeah, that's a great one. It's really interesting. So coming back to freelance, because this is something that you mentioned, this is basically coming out of your comfort zone, right? You do something that is new for you. So once you've completed your studies, you became a freelancer at once, or correct me if I'm wrong?
I interrupted my university studies, and I decided, so I need the operational part of being a trainer, so learn how to deliver, and I did that with the team. I needed the tactical aspect, so the medium range, let's say, and I did it with a course from the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, which was very nice on the basics of L&D. And then I said, okay, I need the strategic bit, and this was the CIPD. Once I finished this one, then I actually started a couple of months before finishing it to work as a freelancer, but I had already submitted all of my duties, let's say, to the CIPD. So it was just a matter of them finishing up and making it official. So I started working before that, and then I got it, and I continued. And I think that the most difference wasn't me having a certificate of sort, but rather the mentality that I got from attending it, from attending the course that led to it.
Yeah, I see. Totally makes sense. And so I started mentioning, the comfort zone and your education. I feel that freelancing is more challenging for most of the L&D specialists than a standard career. So that's why I'd love to talk about it a little bit more. So what steps should someone take if they want to become more independent? Because freelancing obviously comes with its advantages and disadvantages, but once you've made the decision, what do you do next? Is there anything that you'd love to change in your journey?
There would be a lot of things that I would like to change, but I wouldn't know how it would end. So right now I've done my mistakes, I've done my good moves, and I landed in a place where I'm happy. So if you change anything, I don't know if it would have worked differently. Maybe there are some things I could have done earlier, which means connect to a community would have been the first thing. Lose maybe a bit less time on things like well, various websites for freelancing and where freelancers go and they have to apply for small jobs, for example, because without kind of a small following or some practice that you can show other people, is really difficult to have one of those jobs, even if it is a really simple one, because there are so many people that want the same thing you want. So I lost a lot of time on this one, and maybe I should have just focused on networking and being part of a community. The how to start would be showcase what you have to offer. For me, for example, I created this series of posts on LinkedIn, which is called Think to Drop. And I have this knowledge that was sitting in the back of my mind, and I was like, it's not doing anything there. It's like money sitting under the mattress. I'm not investing it. So I decided to invest it and share it for free with other people. It resonated with some, and they started following me, and they started talking with me, and I grew more connections. So this helped me a lot into having my first gig as a freelancer. Which actually came from an LXD Shaker member, which was Alessia, which is the tech enhanced learning lead that I mentioned before, that I would suggest you to get in touch with. She offered me to work with one of the UN agencies, and I said, of course. And then this was the kickstart kind of it.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned networking a couple of times. That it did quite a big change, right, in your career. And what tips could you give to someone who doesn't know where to start from? You mentioned the LXD Shakers community, but how does it work? I mean, we've connected. I know how it works, but from your experience, what works best? And for someone who this is definitely out of the comfort zone, what would you recommend?
I think having a good trustworthy profile on LinkedIn will be a good beginning, because then you can invite people and start creating genuine connection. I think this has been a huge, how to say, a huge positive for me. Without it, I may have not made as many connections as I did. And when I mean connection, I mean real connection. There is a mistake that is often done, that people add someone without a message, which fine so far, but then they don't interact with them. So I invite you, Inna, and then you accept me, and I don't say anything to you. So where is the, hi, Inna, I love what you do. We are in the same area. I would love to get to know you. What do you do? And see if you can learn from each other. So this part is often missing, I've seen from a lot of people. Also that they connect with me and then they don't say anything, and I try to make the first step, but then I wonder, why did you add me in the first place?
Yeah.
So my suggestion would be, add people that you think you can learn from, and that you can either help out somehow, or if you can pay it forward for other people later on the way. Like L&D in particular as an area is full of very helpful people. We are educators. We want to help people. So it comes with the profession. And not using it would be a shame. So just connect with people. Don't be scared of connecting. A lot of people are scared to ask. If you remember, I added you, and then I told you something similar to what I just said, because I was it was intrigued by what you were sharing, what you were talking about. And that's how we connected, and now we are here. And if I were thinking, oh, imagine what if Ina thinks I'm annoying because I'm sending a, I would have just stopped me there. Like, ask, and then if you have a problem, you work with it when you have it. But I never had one. Never. I've got in contact with hundreds of people and connected, I would say, with most of them. Some others have too many meetings in their agendas and they couldn't. But for the wild majority, I did. It was just asking and connecting genuinely without expecting to get something out of them. Just getting to know people, I think, has been one of the main pros of my approach. I contacted you and I didn't go, hey, can you help me find a job? No, I wanted to know you as a person and as an educator. And from there, I learned something. Hopefully you learned something. Then we moved on, and I think we connected, and here we are. So same thing.
Absolutely, yeah. So thing is that many people get an idea that you should start advertising your own skills through LinkedIn, or just growing your network thoughtlessly. But In my experience, that I've never had any negative feedback on adding someone and, just writing them and saying, how are you? Let's grab a digital coffee. And I always think that if someone addresses you to just say, hi, I love what you're doing, and they don't reply to you, well, that's then on them. Then that's not you. You're just being
I
nice.
mean, if you've been honest, if you've been genuine about it, if it's not just a copy paste, hi name,
Yeah.
nice what you do, let's something, then I get it if they don't reply. But if it's clear you put an effort, if you're talking about what they actually do, if you went through what they create, then if they don't reply, maybe they just do not have the capacity at the moment.
That sounds time consuming though.
It is. It is time consuming, but at the same time, I think we lose a lot of time doing things that just aren't worth it. For example, I limited myself on the usage of endless scrolling apps. So say TikTok, say Instagram, Facebook, been abandoned for a while, but just let's mention it. And once you get rid of those, you start seeing that your agenda is way less heavy than you thought. So it sounds like such an obvious thing, but imagine how much time we spent on it. And it's not easy to remove it for everyone. It's not easy to reduce it for everyone. But sometimes I found myself wasting 2 hours, 3 hours on it.
Mm-hmm.
Those 2, 3 hours is way more than enough time to connect with 3, 4, 5 people. So you're giving away saying videos of a cute dog for actually connected with humans that do something similar to what you do, and you can learn from them. I
Yeah.
take it. So that's kind of what I did. I gave the example of the endless scrolling apps, but there are a lot of time that I waste, and waste. Then it's also like I game a lot. I play a lot of PC games. Sometimes it's a waste. Sometimes I need to let some steam off. So waste is very also subjective. But what I mean is there is a lot of time you give to other things. So you have to compare, do I need that or this? And then I think there is time to meet with people. And also, if you don't, what do you do with it? It's very difficult, I think, to enter this kind of area of work without connecting to people, without getting to know them, without getting to know what they focus on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's about priorities, I guess. And yeah, once you've settled with yours, take a course of action, right? Okay, so one more thing that I have to discuss with you. So you have transitioned from IT. Are there any skills that you find in particular quite beneficial while working in L&D right now? And how to acquire them if you have nothing to do with IT?
So some skills that I gained in IT, and then I kind of moved into L&D. I don't know if it sounds silly, but the ability to really understand a program interface.
Uh-huh.
It sounds silly, but for example, there are a lot of applications that are, every company uses a different LMS, learning management system. Every company uses a different way to showcase slides and presentations. You cannot learn all of them, but when they give me, I had a contract some time ago, and it was an emergency session that I had to deliver in 3 days from when they asked me about a topic I didn't knew that much about. So I had to educate myself to educate others in a very short amount of time. Luckily, it was not something that needed experience to be shared, but they used their own system, which I've never seen. If I had to learn how to use it from the ground up with guides, I would have never made it. But you go there, you watch it, like, okay, it just makes sense. This goes there, this goes here, blah, 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 bam, done. So I think that by messing with AT stuff and interfaces for so long, now you give me whatever interface it is, and I kind of understand what's the gist of it, and just use it.
Mm-hmm.
And now there are Articulate, Rise, even Moodle, all of them, they have different interfaces. So being able to move from one to another without having to go through the learning from zero, it's important. And how to acquire it, unfortunately, this specific one, I think it just comes with using a lot of different interfaces and just creating a sense for yourself. But maybe in general, there are so many tools that we are using Zoom right now. You may use Miro, you may use Butter, you may use tons of other softwares. And I think a good skills that you can practice is also understanding which ones are good and which ones are not. a lot of people, I don't know if you ever had that when you were a kid or when you are me right now, because I do it very often. I go to buy stationery, so pencils, because I have to do a project, and then I end up spending 3 hours inside the store and going through all of the pens, all of the pencils, oh, this thing is very cool, blah, blah, blah. And I did the same with softwares. Oh, this is so cool. This does let you do this lets you do that, and yada, yada, yada. And yeah, it's important to understand, okay, this one sounds nice, but it's a cool to see rather than an actual useful one. So moving on, otherwise you lose a lot of time into it. So maybe also this could be something to bring on.
Yeah. Is there anything that you could advise to L&D professionals to become more tech savvy? Because that's not our strongest side sometimes.
That's tough, That's very tough. To become more tech savvy, I think the way I got it was just messing with tech. Tear things apart, put them back together, see what changes. And I imagine someone that is now a teacher and wants to transition into being a trainer, a workshop host, an L&D specialist. It can be really, really tough. I've actually mentored a couple of people that were transitioning in this direction. So something similar to what you were doing. You were doing English as a second language in the beginning, if I'm not mistaken, and then you moved into L&D. And a lot of people are following the same path, which is interesting to understand the why, which I don't get yet, but it's just interesting to think about. And they have the same problem with technology, I realized. But I wouldn't know of a fast way to just get over it. I think understanding maybe rather than how to become tech savvy, which I think is not something you can do like this, you can instead focus on what is the industry standard. So, for example, the Articulate suite it is probably the industry standard for what it does. Get to learn it, get the guide, be a beast about it, and focus on that one, because you know that this is recognized by other people. Zoom knows the in and outs of it. It's rather simple compared to Articulate, but it's something you use all the time. If something happens, you know how to fix it, then it's a bit of a mess. So focus on the things that are used by everyone first, and then slowly move to the other, because maybe you cannot learn IT in a month, but you can learn the best tools you need in a bit, and then expand to the others as you gain more time with your profession.
Absolutely, that's a really great piece of advice. And we've had Ross Stevenson and Rita Azevedo during our podcast, and I've asked them a similar question only regarding AI. And the answer, if you ask any of the experts, they would say, just do it. Just repeating the meme that everyone knows. So just practice, try to do it. And in the end, this is how I think that many people confuse the education in general with education in tech area. For me personally, what worked well, just take a button and start clicking everywhere you can, and just seeing, what this does. And this is how, for me, is the best way to get to know any kind of software. I might be wrong, but I see the result that, I am more aware of features, and it's much easier for me to find after this in some other tools.
It makes a lot of sense, and it's also being able to try in what is a safe space is what I think helps a lot of people to learn. It's like with training. When I do train the trainer event and someone goes on the stage for the first time and messes up, we're not like, oh my God, what have you done? No, it's like you're supposed to fail so you can understand what went wrong and fix it. Same thing, like if you go for the first time into a new software, you never use it, and you're already delivering with it, it's a nightmare. But if you can practice on your own, alone, at home, then you can break it and do whatever damage you want. It doesn't matter. You can reset and start again. So yeah, I think it's a good approach. And also from the agricultural perspective, taking something and just breaking it apart, putting it together, I think it just goes with it. It's interesting you mentioned AI and tech, and I like that you made it two different questions, because with AI, if you start now, you're let's say, not extremely far in the race. The other people, it's something new and it changes very often. So if you start now, you can always learn something. With IT in general, with tech in general, it's a bit more complex because I had a head start when I was a kid and playing with computer. My first game was Jill of the Jungle, which if you Google it is like way too old for anyone at this point. And so I had kind of a head start. But with AI, you can start now. You just play with it, see what happens. After all, it goes with prompts and results. So trial and error, trial and error. You give something, it doesn't give you back what you wanted. You try again in a different way and see what changes. So I think it's the same approach, and I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, learn by doing. Am I right?
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into Giuseppe's journey from hacker to learning experience designer and gained insights into freelancing and L&D, benefits of IT skills in learning design. A big thank you to our guest for sharing your incredible journey and expertise. I hope that our listeners enjoyed our conversation as much as I did.
Thanks a lot, and it was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to EdTalks on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. Don't forget to follow Eli on social media for more episodes, as well as to discover the next level powerhouse for educational content. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on the EdTalks.